All right, welcome back to Inspector Toolbelt. Today we have with us Paula Pinnix from America's Call Center. How are you, Paula?
Oh, I'm doing great today. Thanks so much for inviting me today, Ian. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we've had wanted to have you guys on the show for quite some time now. I mean, I've worked with you guys for many years, and this is a question that comes up a lot. Should I use a call center? And there's kind of a stigma attached to call centers with a lot of people, and we'll kind of get
hmm
that into that in a little bit. But tell us about yourself, Paula.
Well, I have been with ACC. This year will be my 10th year. I started off as a specialist on the phones, scheduling home inspections. So when it comes to knowing what we do here at ACC, I absolutely understand the service that we provide for our inspectors because I did it for so many years. I spent 2 years as a specialist on the phone scheduling home inspections, and then I was offered a manager position. So I was a team manager for several years and had my own team of folks on the phones that I managed. While I was a team manager, I had the great pleasure of attending a couple of home inspector conferences, which I really enjoyed meeting the inspectors, talking to them, because I truly feel that ACC is a service that really provides a lot of benefits and value for home inspectors. So it's something I really believe in. So, going to the conferences, talking to inspectors, it felt really natural, felt really good. So over time, I just kind of morphed into the sales role. And after a while, I just kind of became kind of the sales manager permanently and had someone else replace me on the team. So that's kind of been my journey here at ACC. And, 10 years, haven't left. I love working here. I love working with the people. I love working with the inspectors. It's really been a great joy.
That's fantastic. And even though you're called America's Call Center, it's not. You're very home inspector specific. That's what you do. So
That is
that
correct.
and that's what I've always appreciated about working with you guys. So anybody listening to the show right now, you know that I have a definite opinion on the answer to this question. Should you hire a call center? I've always said emphatically yes. I've never seen a reason to not have a call center, and the only regret I've ever had was not doing it sooner. And there's a lot of reasons why, but we all have to kind of make our own decisions as to whether we should hire a call center. So Paul is going to help us today to discuss this subject. And instead of asking the question, should we hire a call center? Let's address it as why hiring a call center is worth it. Because uh, I'm going to answer my own question. Yes, you should hire a call center. So
Well,
you,
and I 100% agree with you, Ian, but, I am biased. And I think another good question that, inspectors should always be asking themselves is how much is your time worth? As a home inspector and as a business owner, do you ever sit back and think how much an hour of your time is actually worth? And if you haven't, I think that's really good. That's something that we've asked in large groups of inspectors, and we get varying answers. I've had guys say, $150 to, $750. So it makes sense if you feel that an hour of your time as a home inspector is worth $250, shouldn't you go out and do the things that's going to be to net you that $250 per hour, meaning get you more home inspections versus spending hours every day or hours a week being a secretary?
yeah, and I think a lot of that, though, kind of comes down to the stigma that happens with a call center. So before I was introduced to you guys, we actually talked with another call center. It was local, worked with real estate agents I knew in the area. They
hmm
kind of had a broad range of businesses that they worked with. And you know what? It was pretty much the stereotypical call center. A bunch of people sitting in booths that didn't know what was going on and just taking orders.
hmm
I mean, I could have done that faster and cheaper. So there's a stigma that's attached to it. But when we're talking about a call center, we're really talking about, I call you guys a remote office
hmm
because that's what it is. You guys follow up on things, you close leads, you track things. It's a lot more than, hey, this is so and so, order something or don't, you know.
Exactly. Because we do act as our inspector's office. So we take that time to learn about each individual inspector's business. How do you like to have things done? Like you specifically, Ian, we want to know What is your process? One of the things I always say to inspectors when I'm talking to them is I think what we're really good at, and I think what sets us apart is technically what all of our inspectors do, it's the same. That end result is the same. It's a home inspection, right? You all want to get that home inspection scheduled. But the particular path that every inspector takes to get to that end result, that booked home inspection, can be very different. And here at ACC, that's what we really take the time to learn is what is your particular path that you want taken to get to that end result. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to follow that path to a T.
Yeah, and let's talk about that in general. So now that we're past the whole hurdle of this isn't what we would typically think of as a call center. One of my personal hurdles that I had to get over was losing control, so to speak. I needed to know each client. I wanted to get to know them, their needs, what's going on. Do I want them on my schedule? I have a big service area, and
Mm-hmm.
what if I have, an inspection over here and over there? There were too many variables in my mind to say I can hand this over to someone else. So there were some other hurdles. For instance, I worried about being busy enough to validate hiring a call center. How busy do you think a home inspector needs to be before he or she should hire a call center?
And I feel that there are a lot of different opinions on this. Obviously, I would suggest that it can be beneficial to get started up with us from the very beginning because if you are a brand new inspector, what should you be spending the majority of your time doing? You should be out there marketing yourself, building those agent relationships, letting these agents know you're out here, who you are, what you're about. And if you're tied to a phone, you may not be able to give that marketing your all. So there's value in starting up with us from the very beginning because if you're out there, you're spending time and money on marketing, you don't want the first time that agent or broker calls your company, you don't want them to get voicemail because you're unavailable or you didn't make it to the phone fast enough. You want them to get someone on the other end of the line that is professional, knowledgeable, and ultimately can sell you and your home inspection company. And that's exactly what we do. And then, there's the other camp that feels like, once you hit, 150 to 200 inspections, you shouldn't be answering your phones. And, basically, I feel at that point, you're probably missing opportunities here and there. And if I'm being completely honest with you, when you use our service, if we capture one phone call that might have otherwise went to voicemail and that person moved on to that next inspector, more than likely we've paid almost the entire invoice that you would pay to ACC. So anything beyond that is going to be straight revenue for that inspector in their pocket.
Yeah, and I guess I had to come to realize what that meant for me when I was a newer inspector. I remember the first week that I had you guys fully on board when I had a call center answering my phones. It was magical. I loved it. So I remember
I
the
love
day.
hearing that.
Well, I remember the day I woke up and there were scheduled inspections that I didn't have to schedule. I showed up. You guys answered a bunch of phone messages and answered basic questions that I normally would have had to answer. I stopped and had a leisurely lunch, put some finishing touches on my report. I was early for my next inspection and I went home and there was like maybe one message that I had to return. And I'm like, oh my goodness, why would
Like,
I
why
ever answer
did
my phone?
I really love to hear that, Ian, because, again, I'm biased, but I'm a big believer in, not only does ACC add value to your business and help you be a better business owner, but we also give you that great work, that work personal life balance to where, you can go out to dinner with your family and not worry that you're missing opportunities or excuse yourself from the dinner table because you're going to go take a phone call and schedule an inspection. Leave that to us. I always like to say we're the professionals. Like, you as a home inspector consider yourself a professional as well, right? So, you wouldn't tell somebody, oh, have Jim Bob, the contractor, come out and do your home inspection. You would tell that client you should use a professional, right? And it's the same thing for you guys when it comes to deciding how you want to have your company represented, how you want your phones answered. You want to use professionals, and that's exactly what ACC is because we only work with home inspectors.
Yeah, and I guess that's key to mention. If you're going to hire a call center, make sure you hire one that is home inspector specific. And things are getting hyper specific in general, anyways. So always hire one that's industry specific to us. And Paula, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I call it the crawl space factor. So say we're a new inspector
Hmm.
and we get our first inspection and we charged $500 for it. While we're in that crawl space, we miss a phone call or while we're
Yep.
doing a presentation for an agent. It's happened to me. No matter how good we are about answering our phones or getting back to a message, there's a crawl space factor. I'm not answering my phone while a raccoon is attacking me. So
Right?
so maybe that was a $750 inspection that we missed. Now that $500 inspection cost us 250 because we missed a $750 inspection, or it actually cost us 750 depending on how you perceive it. It's costing us money not to get to our phone quickly. And
Hmm.
a hot lead is a hot lead. If somebody's calling us, we can close it right there. If we have to call back, somebody else has already likely closed that deal. I would lose half of the messages or more, but I would close 80 to 90% of live phone calls. So
Exactly.
if it goes to voicemail, it's 50-50 chance that lead is dead, if not more of a chance.
Yep. And that's one thing I think really sets us apart as well is all of our calls during the live hours of operation, they are answered by a member of your team. And you're familiar with your team, and you have that same group of people that's always answering and scheduling for you because we do want to create that kind of very personal office feel for you. So those agents that use you all the time, when they call in to schedule, they're talking to the same people over and over again. So it's not like, because I know we all get a mental image when we hear call center, don't we? And, what do we generally see? We see a big room, a whole bunch of cubicles, and, people just sitting, a sea of people, and everybody's just picking up whatever phone call that comes into their desk. That's not how ACC operates. We work in small team sizes, and that team only works with a certain set of companies. So that goal is that team builds relationships with you as the inspector and the owner, and we really work to understand how you want to have your business run. So when we're representing your company, when we're answering the phones, we are doing those things exactly the way you would do them or the way you would want them done if you were the one on the phones.
Yeah, and just to that point, we actually have five-star reviews that actually mention members of the team specifically for how they were handled from beginning to end and the follow-up and things like that. So just the argument again for call centers in general. First of all, they will close more leads. They'll follow up on more leads. They'll be able to answer your phone right away, and it all gives you a professional appearance. I know a lot of inspectors that start off right away with a call center, so they, like you said, Paula, can just start out their business and do what they need to do. But a lot of times we think of close rates of the phone calls, and there's a perceived close rate versus actual close rate of phone calls.
Hmm.
So I challenged the home inspector one time. I said, "What's your close rate?" "Oh, I close 9 out of 10 phone calls." Okay, let's start writing this down. And I actually had him write it down. And he was funny. He's like, "Oh man, I'm."
Was he disappointed?
He was disappointed. And I'm like, and we didn't even count the phone calls that called but didn't leave a number or didn't leave a
Hmm.
message rather. It was just a number and we didn't know who they were. This was people that he actually either missed or didn't close the phone call. Our perceived close rate may be very different than our actual close rate. So if we as home inspectors take the time to write down how many phone calls did I get?
Hmm.
How many did I miss? And they didn't leave a message or I called back and nobody answered. How many phone calls did I have to answer in a hurry or while I was in my truck? We may be actually missing leads,
Hmm.
not because of something we don't realize. If I'm calling a contractor to work on my house and he's kind of slamming his truck door, yeah, I can hear you. Hang on, I'm switching to Bluetooth. It's already painted a picture for me of all right, I'm not important. So
Right. And
there's a lot of
Exactly.
reasons to hire a call center. So take a moment and actually evaluate our close rates because I think that's what a lot of home inspectors worry about. Oh, people aren't gonna hire me because I'm using a call center. I don't think anybody even realizes it's a call center.
No, I do have a couple funny stories there. I used to have a transaction coordinator in Colorado when I was a specialist on the phones, and she was consistently inviting me out to happy hour. And when she ran into the home inspector a few months later, because I would always come up with some excuse, and it was usually in a joking way. It's like, oh well, so and so, keeps me chained to this desk, answering the phones. Like, I don't have time to get away for happy hour. So she had ran into that inspection owner a couple months later and apparently gave him, the what for of why he won't let me leave the office to go have a drink with her at lunch or happy hour. And then he basically let her know, well, the reason is she's never going to come out and have a drink with you because she's in, Kansas City. And she did not believe him. And she called me the next day and was like, Paula, are you in Kansas City? And I about had a heart attack. I was like, I don't know what to say. And then I talked to the inspector because I immediately called him after that. And I was like, you know, what's going on? I was like, if she says anything to you, I was like, I was really thrown off. So I was like, I was stuttering and sputtering. And he's like, oh no, I told her you were in Kansas City. And I was like, oh, thank you, God. I was like, you've got to tell me when you do these things. I about had a heart attack. But that's the amount of care and everything that we put into every phone call and every interaction with all of your callers. So no one ever gets that feel that, oh, I'm calling a call center. These people don't care about me. They don't care about my needs, what I have to say. So everybody assumes we are local there to our inspectors because of the level of service and the level of care that we put forth on every single phone call.
Yeah, and as you were speaking, another advantage of a call center in general that I have always appreciated, and this is going to come off wrong to maybe some of you listening in, but it creates a level of unavailability. So I'm very available to my clients, and sometimes when they talk to the owner, now they have questions. Oh, Ian's phone number is just this. Then they call, and a lot of times it was just strange calls like, "Oh, Ian, you said something on the inspection. What was that? It's in the report, but I just rather hear it from you directly." And it's like, "Oh, okay. Well, I got
Yeah.
30 of those phone calls today." A lot of times when they call and they say, "Oh, I have to talk to Ian's secretary," and then I'll leave a message. "Oh, I'll just look at the report." It cut down on a lot of, for lack of a better term, nuisance calls where they could have just looked at the report. They could have just figured it out. Half of the time it was just I was Google searching things for people. And then
Right.
only the real concerns would come through.
Y-
I have a funny story too, just real quick. I actually had a death threat one time that you guys handled for me.
Oh my God.
Uh,
Are you
yeah,
serious?
that was pretty crazy. So a seller got mad. I found a leak in his shower and mold in his basement, and he called. And I remember one of the girls from the team calling, saying, "Hey, so this guy described in detail how he's gonna kill you,"
Oh
and
God.
so the police got involved.
Awkward.
Oh, it was totally awkward. But you guys handled it beautifully. And the police got involved and they're like, well, he left a voicemail, but he didn't talk to you directly. So we can't go after him unless he threatens you directly. And I'm like, really? Okay, I'll call him. And they're like, what? The cop was like, "No, you shouldn't call him." I'm like, is he going to murder me less or more?
Right.
And he was like, I really don't know how to handle this. I'm like, it's okay, buddy. So I called the guy and he calmed down. I actually felt bad for him. He had and he also had a violent police record apparently too. Like if he wanted to kill me, he was going to kill me.
Oh God.
Apparently he's a friend now though. Like he thanked me for the phone call and I talked him through some stuff in his life. But you guys were right there supporting it. And it gave me that little bit of detachment. So I didn't immediately get a phone call. I felt bad for the girls taking the calls, but it created a moment
See,
there where I
that's
could
like a
collect myself.
MasterCard moment, right? That's priceless. Like,
Yeah,
can you put a price on us intercepting death threats for you? I don't
right.
feel like you can.
You guys are my
But
heroes.
that's one of the things that I don't think a lot of inspectors think about is we do insulate you to a point. Like we're that first line of defense. And I found, from being on the phones and being a specialist for years, that many complaint calls, like they're not really valid. Like that person just wants to vent to someone. They want someone to listen to them. They want empathy. They want someone to sympathize with them. And, I would spend, I wouldn't say hours, but, I spent a lot of time on phone calls, just listening to someone rant about things that I knew from my experience had absolutely nothing to do with my inspector, but this was coming from an emotional place. And, if I just let them vent, apologize, let them know, I'm so sorry that this happened. I'm so sorry that you feel this way. That actually can a lot of times de-escalate the situation and get that person into a better place to where they are thinking a bit more rationally and, aren't throwing out ridiculous threats. So, and I don't think a lot of inspectors realize the value of that. Even if we listen to five people rant for 10 to 15 minutes, that's, an hour or more that you didn't have to waste listening to someone rant about something that you have nothing to do with.
Yeah, and the emotional toll, because we did a podcast on inspector burnout. If you're handling all of those calls from emotional people, that burns you out. I mean, there's only so much listening you can do. And
Hmm.
I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not warm and fuzzy when it comes to that kind of stuff. But you guys have always done a great job with that. So that also brings me to another point. A lot of guys say, I'd rather hire a secretary versus a
Hmm.
call center. What do you think the advantages of a call center are to a secretary? I have a definitive opinion, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I don't want to, talk bad about hiring in-house, but you also have to remember if you bring in in-house staff, you're also inviting all of those staffing headaches that come along with having employees. I mean, life happens. You're going to hire someone, they're going to get sick. If they have kids, their kids are going to get sick. Inevitably, people call in, they're going to want to take vacation time. Now, what are you going to do when your secretary or your office manager calls in and it's Monday? It's the Monday after Memorial Day, one of the busiest Mondays of the year. Now the phones are landing back in your lap. You may have already had marketing events scheduled for that day or something. So now what do? You're tied to the phone. Do you cancel your marketing events? And of course, those aren't worries that you're ever going to have using ACC. We're always going to be there. We're never going to call you on a busy Monday and be like, I had a really long weekend. I'm just not feeling it today. Those aren't going to be issues that you're going to encounter with us. And I don't know how it is across the country, but, I know we've had struggle hiring folks, just getting people that are wanting to apply and work. So, when you're hiring in-house staff, one, you have to find the person. You're inevitably going to have to train them unless you magically find someone that knows all about the industry. So you're going to have to train them on the home inspection industry, all your ancillary services, why those callers need them. And then now 2 months later, they're on the phones doing great. Now that person gets married, they're moving to be with their husband. Now you're back to square one. The hiring, training process all over again. And I've talked to a lot of inspectors and signed up a lot of inspectors who, their third secretary or third office manager has quit on them and they finally have reached the end of their rope and they want to break the vicious cycle and stop with the in-house staff, so they move to a call center. I think that in of itself is of huge value, especially if you've ever done the hiring and training. I've talked to folks and they're just like, God, it's such a nightmare finding the person, getting them through the training, only to lose them, 6 months or a year later. So, skip all that. Just come to ACC.
Yeah, and we always miss the team members on ACC's side when they move away. But to be perfectly honest, a new team member comes in, and we don't have to worry about, oh, we're going to have to get this person trained for the next 2 months because there's still three, four, five, six, seven other people there.
Yep.
answering phone calls, so the rotation isn't as critical. But there's a home inspector that I know. He cracked me up. He goes, "I will never hire a call center. I will only have a secretary. I want it to be in-house 100%." He went through, like you said, it wasn't three, it was two secretaries in a year. And each time he hired the secretary, it brought everything to a grinding halt. And then the
Yep.
secretary left, only gave 2 weeks notice, took him 2 months to, find a new person. He's answering the phones for a multi-inspector firm, stressing himself out, up late, missing calls. And then finally I'm like, so you want to think about a call center now? It's a lot, and it's a lot of work, and you don't have to do that. You get the benefit of it without having to worry about hiring. That that's a big deal.
Or, if you have an office manager, I'll talk to, multi-inspector companies that maybe they have someone, and it's like, okay, why don't you take this person, use us for the phones and maybe have your office manager do other things within the company that's
Yeah.
going to be of more value. So maybe that person could morph into a great marketing person. So you could utilize that person in other capacities in your company. So I'm not saying that you should never have in-house staff.
Hmm.
I'm just saying you should utilize them, to the best of your ability, and then, kind of contract out those things that you can to professional folks that know what they're doing.
Yeah, and I'm not saying not to hire in-house either. It just it just makes logistic sense. Like I always thought, oh well, maybe I'd use my wife to answer the phones, but eventually,
Like,
what?
do you want to stay married? No,
Yeah,
I'm playing.
exactly. um, so, but like you have kids. So kids needs to get brought to the doctors. Now she's not answering the phones. Other things come up and happen in life where if one person is answering the phones, that crawl space factor comes back into play. What if
Hmm.
she's on one line and you get two other leads call in at the same time? She can't
Yep.
answer all three phone calls, whereas a call center can.
Exactly, because you have a whole team that's there for you to answer those phone calls. And, ultimately, our goal is to take all these opportunities, whether it's a phone call, email, text message that comes in for your company. Our goal is to convert those opportunities into booked inspections for you, as well as, upselling. I'm sure that you've experienced this. All of our teams were very effective at upselling for our inspectors. So not only are we focused on trying to book you all the inspections that we can, we're also very focused on making sure that we're maximizing the revenue that you're going to make for that inspection as well.
Yeah, and I think a couple things that people worry about are call centers making mistakes. I actually had a friend of mine, and he said, "Oh man, they made a mistake. They charged this person the wrong amount." I'm like, "Okay, did they fix it?" "Yeah, but I had to call the person." And he was kind of upset. And I'm like, "You've never done that?" And so what I did was I tried to get him to understand. I'm like, "You make those mistakes too. You just forgive yourself easily. Like, oh, I had to call
Mm-hmm.
them back, but because they made it, then you had to call them back. Okay, mistakes happen, but then think about all the times you've made mistakes where you've lost the lead. You didn't get the inspection. Your close rate was, 48%, and theirs is 92%. It No matter what kind of mistakes happen, it's well worth it in the end. And 99.9% of them can be easily fixed. Oh, okay, I'll just call them. Like we had an agent one time, it was the wrong email, but it wasn't ACC's fault. It was the agent had two email addresses and one on one website, one on another. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So we called them and we fixed it, and they said thank you. It's like, okay, you move on.
And and I would love to sit here and say that we never make a mistake, but that would be an outright lie because we're human. And in the majority of these cases, we're dealing with another human. So now you have two margins of errors because humans interacting with other humans, right? But at the end of the day, we want to be perfect. Like, we don't want to make mistakes. So, we always work if we do make a mistake to fix any errors. Another funny story, when I was a manager, I had a company that I worked with. They were all firefighters. And, we did the majority of their scheduling, but every now and then somebody would call one of the guys directly, and it would never fail. They would misquote their inspection fees by $150. So they would call back in, and the person would say, well, so and so said it was going to be this amount. And when I put the property specs in, it would be, more money. So then I'd call the inspector and he'd be like, oh, yeah. He's like, oh, I messed up. He's like, but we're going to have to honor it. He's like, I'm going to honor it because that's what I did. And I would tell these guys all the time, stop giving pricing in the field. Tell them to call the office. Like, you are literally losing yourself money every time you do this because you're never quoting the accurate price. Have them call us. We'll look the property up, make sure that we've got the accurate property information, and we will make sure that we're giving them accurate pricing. But same factor there. But yeah, there may be a time where we make a mistake, but absolutely, if you let us know, and, I hope this is something that you've experienced, we will absolutely do whatever we need to do to make sure that we correct that error because we don't want there to be errors.
Oh yeah, and they're few and far between. I just hear home inspectors say that a lot. Oh well, they made a mistake. I'm like, they made a mistake. Okay, how many do you make that you kind of forgive yourself for? Oh, I misquoted this
Right?
house, so I'm just gonna go in there and inspect it for that price anyways. Whereas if you call into a call center, you guys are sitting right there. You know, you're looking at all the MLSs and Zillow and just verifying. Oh, there is a finished basement in this. That'll be an extra $50. Or you know what? There is a barn. Would you like us to inspect that? Oh,
Yeah.
did you know we did sewer scopes, upselling? Whereas me and my truck, what's that? Okay. Yeah, I don't know, like 350, 800,
Right.
somewhere in that range.
That sounds good, right?
Yeah, sure.
Well, and I've also found that the majority of folks like they don't ever mention, that 2,500 square foot barn that's on the back of the property. Like that's not in their mind to think about that.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, they absolutely expect that you're going to be taking a look at it, right? So those are also things that the teams are doing. We're not just looking at the house itself. We're looking at the entirety of the listing to see if there are various property anomalies that inspector should be getting paid additional monies for.
Yeah. So there's lots of reasons to hire a call center. I think the biggest one that hangs on to my mind is just the feeling of waking up and going out and doing inspections. You know,
Right.
go like I said, it's just I had lunch and I could go home and I played with my
You
daughter and it was
didn't have to
amazing.
return 20 calls at the end of the day when
Oh,
you thought your workday was over.
yeah. And you know what's funny is I remember another inspector, he brought up an objection. He goes, "Well, what happens if like my mom calls or my cousin?" I'm like, "Okay, give them your new number first of all if you're going to switch numbers over, or you know they'll take a message. My mom to this day still calls the wrong phone number. I don't know. It's just we'll work on that over time. But you know,
Another funny story, like I had an inspection company, and without fail, every Saturday his mom would call and ask where he was. And I don't think she knew we were a call center because when I would say, I'm sorry, so and so isn't in right now, she'd be go, where is he at? And I'd be like, I don't know where he's at, so then I'd send the message. And then over time, after it happened every Saturday for about a month, I was like, I think this guy just hired us to screen calls from his mom.
yeah. So see, there's an extra benefit. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. Well,
Yes, but I love my mom.
we've done it with ex-wives too. So,
Oh boy. Okay, well, we'll hold off on those stories for the moment. But so there's a lot of different benefits. There's the emotional burnout factor of hey, somebody else can handle some of the nitty gritty. There's the benefit of I call it marketing because nothing
hmm
makes you look more professional than someone answering your phones, following up on leads up to 3 times, and making connections and talking with agents in your behalf. There's also the factor of you can just go out and do what you need to do. You can inspect. You don't have to worry about your phone buzzing in your pocket while you're hanging upside down in the attic. And it's just, and to be honest with you, our rates went up because the average inspection fee went up because you
hmm
guys are upselling to
yep.
be perfect. It's very better than we can because we're not sitting there. Here's a list of my services, quiet in an office, looking at their house, saying, "Yep, there's that barn. Oh, you know what? There's 2 barns out there. We should inspect both of those. How about a sewer scope? It looks like an older house.
hmm
You know,
Well, and I find that if you're an inspector and you're answering your own phone and you're on a roof and you pick up that phone, well, first of all, that's dangerous for you. Like if you fall off a roof, you can injure yourself pretty badly, and then, you're not going to be able to work. So there's a multitude of reasons you shouldn't be answering your own calls while you're doing an inspection. But if you do, generally you're focused on getting that bare bones information and getting off that phone back to what you were doing. So, a lot of inspectors that answer their own phones, they don't upsell themselves effectively because they're not spending the time on that call that they should to educate the caller on what those services are and why they may need them. Whereas we have that time to make sure that that caller is fully educated on what those services are, why they may need them, so they can make educated decisions for themselves. And that education piece, I think, is vital to us being effective at upselling those ancillary services.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've actually posted my phone script that I used before I used the call center. But as you're talking, you're right. I don't bring my script up on a roof with me. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have it 100% memorized. I'm focusing on a chimney or, how the flashing is around the roof. And I'm not thinking, okay, what was point number 4? Or what was my other ancillary service that I was going to offer in this
Mm-hmm.
situation? So I only have it in my truck or when I'm in my office. Whereas you guys are ready to go with that
Yeah,
all the
when you're
time.
in the middle of doing something else, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you want to get back to what you were doing, whether it's that inspection process, maybe you're doing a review with a client. Like, you're not taking those extra moments to make sure that that caller's fully educated about the sewer scope because that home was built in 1960 or something. Whereas, your team, they're going to be educating that caller, looking at the services that you're providing based off their need, based off the property, and making sure that, and really we see that as a service to the client too, because, if someone is buying a house that was built in 1960, I feel like they absolutely should have a sewer scope inspection done. Like, that is for their benefit. And if we're not educating them properly and they have sewer issues down the road, then I feel like we didn't, serve them properly. We didn't do that client justice. So that's why I feel that education about those services is so vital.
Yeah. And even like septic inspections, we do septic inspections. Oh, it says here on Zillow, it's on private sewer. Would you like a septic inspection? Oh, you guys do that? Oh, perfect. That's going to save me another phone call.
Mm-hmm.
There's another $400 inspection that, you know what? I'm not going to see the MLS there. I'm going to go, oh, okay, yeah, home inspection is this much. And then I get there and somebody else is doing the septic inspection.
And you would be shocked. Like, I feel like a vast percentage of people have no idea about, sewer, water. You talk to a lot of these folks and you'll say, is the home on city water or is it on well? I don't know. Like, I turned the faucet on and water came out. Like, it seemed good to
Yeah.
me. So, it really is helpful that we're able to look these listings up, read through the property descriptions, and be able to offer those services that that client would potentially need.
And
And that really is a CYA for our inspectors too, because let's say that person, excuse me, does say that they don't want, a septic or a sewer line inspection. And 6 months down the road, now they're having issues with that system and they want to come back and blame you, Mr. Inspector. Guess what? We offered you this service. We told you, why you may need it. So, they can't really hold you liable for not telling them about any sewage or, septic problems. So I also think it's a good CYA for our inspectors. Nobody can come back and blame you. Well, why didn't you tell me, Mr. Inspector, that there was a problem? Well, why didn't you have the inspection done? We, educated you on this service, yet you declined it. So, we wouldn't have known about any problems because you opted out of having the service done.
yeah, and I do love that. There's a lot of recording that happens. Like you write down, this is what we offered them, this is what they refused, this is what they did order. Here's our
Mm-hmm.
call tracking for the month, and here's how many people called and how many we closed, and that's beautiful stuff. So there's really a ton of reasons to hire a call center. And again, if you listen to Inspector Toolbelt talk a lot, you'll know that that's my opinion. If you have a different one, we'd love to do a podcast and hear your opinion. But I am 100% for a call center. And Paula, thank you so much for being on. We love you guys over there at ACC. You do an amazing job, and thank you for helping us with this subject today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Ian. And like I said, if I could clone you and have 500 more inspectors to work with just like you, I absolutely would.
Well, that would be a terrible world to live in if there were 500 of me.
No,
but
no, no.
but thank you again for being on, Paula, and hopefully we'll have you on a future show.
Yeah, definitely let me know. We're always happy to get the opportunity to, talk to, your amazing following for your podcast. So, we're more than happy to come back should you have the need for us.
Awesome. Thanks. We'll look forward to that.
All right, you take care and have a great rest of your week. And everybody out there, enjoy. And, if you ever have any questions about ACC, I'm pretty easy to find. You can go to the website, just submit a website form, and I personally will give you a call to answer any questions that you have. I'm all over Facebook. You can reach out to me on Facebook. I'm fairly easy to find if you'd like to learn more. So don't hesitate to reach out to me anytime, okay?
Great. And we'll put links in the transcript. Thanks, Paula. Have a
All
good
right,
one.
thanks, Ian. You guys have a great day.